Did you know that despite making up 50% of sellers, women hold just 30% of the sales leadership roles? It's not a pipeline problem. That's a promotion problem. Welcome to the Women in Sales Leadership podcast, where we make the new rules of success for high-performing women in sales. And I'm your host, Amy Evans, sales leader turned executive coach. After 25 years in the trenches at Salesforce, EDP, and startups, I now help ambitious sales managers step into second-line leadership roles. If you are ready to lead with authority, earn what you're worth, and make a bigger impact, you are in the right place. Click follow so the next episode will be waiting for you. So welcome back. Today in Women in Sales Leadership, I am joined by Lindsay Rios, a revenue and go-to-market leader who's been named one of the top 100 most powerful women in sales. Holy smokes. If you follow her on LinkedIn, you've probably seen her unapologetic posts about no poopy pipelines, debunking founder myths, and building cultures where people actually love their jobs. She calls herself a RevOps nerd. She's allergic to mediocre culture and is a hype girl for working women and mamas, and she means it. She has helped startups scale from 2 million to 10 million plus in ARR. She's built teams from scratch from the US to UK and has stepped in as a fractional CRO and VP of sales for companies that are navigating big inflection points. But what's great about Lindsay is that she's not all sales talk. She's also self-proclaimed home chef. And if you've ever caught her What's for Dinner posts on LinkedIn, you will absolutely know what I'm talking about. She brings the same creativity, spunk, and discipline to the kitchen as she does to pipeline inspection. Lindsay, welcome, and thank you for being here with me on Women in Sales Leadership.
Feel like if I got to start my day off every day with you, like introducing me to,
I'm available.
Right? Like that would be actually a really good idea. You know,
we're just going to take this audio and we're going to just like put in a little voice memo for you, and you can get access to this whenever you want it. You
ever want like your life to be narrated as you're like going about it a little bit?
Full on. It's don't we all think that we're sort of like living in a movie a little bit, right? More than
I mean, sometimes I say I've got to be. This has got to be. I'm in a sitcom right now, right? Like,
some days it's a sitcom. Sometimes it's a super heavy drama.
Drama, yeah, 100%.
Oh my God. Yep. All right. Well, so let's get into it. So Lindsay, your LinkedIn headline says that you're a revenue and go-to-market leader / fractional leader and coach / no poopy pipelines. When you look back, what pulled you into the startup world?
Well, I started my sales career selling cars. So
get out of town.
Yeah. So instead of going to med school right away, because I didn't want to.
Me neither. I didn't want to go to med school either. It's a hard no.
Like, I'm just not ready for this like decade-long journey yet. So my dad had actually been like, he was working at a BMW dealership. He'd been in dealerships off and on for a bit because the economy was horrendous. Hashtag 2008.
Yes.
And so I was like, he's like, why don't you just, like work for a little bit? You don't need to go dive right into the med school like process right away. And I was like, sure, sounds good. Where would I do that though? Right. And then he was like, just come sell some cars. Dealership would hire you. And then I was like, oh, sure, why not? So, there was something great about being a very young person without choosing that job because I needed it, like, in terms of like supporting a family or having crazy responsibilities, because, the automotive business and selling cars is.
What is it like?
Well, it's ironic now that I'm huge on, incredible culture in the workplace, because I'll tell you, there's none of that working for dealerships. Yeah, it's come a long way. And there are the dealership that I worked for 5 years is, like, if you're going to work for one, like that's the one that's the group you'd work with. But even so, it's obviously very antiquated. It's very still old school in terms of like customers always right sort of kind of mentality too. Yeah. And And then of course the sheer lack of women that are there around you. Um,
Mhm.
more and more now, like
Yeah.
huge difference now, but back then a 22-year-old woman walking around was like, huh? Especially being in sales. Like they would, the assumption would be like, oh, maybe she's like a receptionist or something.
She's the assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was without fear in a sense, like I said, because it was just like supposed to be, I'll just do this for a little bit. And obviously coming out of college and making like adult money was also like, well, this is pretty fun. And I actually ended up, building a career out of it. And I'm very motivated by like progression. So,
Mm.
I thought, oh, this is it. And I also met my husband there. So, um,
Get out. Okay.
yeah. So, looking back, like it's hard not to have some very fond feelings about being from automotive. But that being said, when we were having my now 11-year-old, I had to get out, had to leave. Wasn't going to work. You can't not pick up your child from daycare on time. It's just not really
It's frowned upon.
it's super frowned upon.
I've
So
I've really pushed the envelope on that particular topic, and I'm familiar with how frowned upon it is.
yeah, people don't like that.
Yeah.
So one of my best friends was working for early stage startup right out of college. I was going into went and lived in San Francisco because we're in the Bay Area, and I didn't. I stayed in the East Bay, and I was always just like, I I don't want to start over financially. Like we have a family we're building, and I can't afford to be like an SDR at a tech
Mm.
company and commute into the city. It wasn't
Mhm.
a pride thing. It was just I like can't afford to do that. And
Yeah.
especially back then, tech was still, I mean, tech snobby no matter what, but they were very snobby in terms of you can't go be an AE unless you've done this for 5 years.
Yes. Yes. It was no coloring outside the lines. Mhm.
There was a startup here locally though that my coworker's wife had been working at, and he'd been telling me about it, and I always sounded like grass was greener. Um, but I finally was like, when you have one of the wonderful things, one of many about having children is you learn how to get out of your own way more than you ever had before. So it was not an option anymore to kind of push off those ideas. And so I was referred to to interview for an AE role at this startup. And they even were trying to push me off because they were like, well, maybe you could be like a renewals person, but we just filled that role recently. And I was like, no. Um, like I'm the top salesperson here. I'm gonna be a salesperson, not a
That's some
renewal.
squandering of talent and capabilities there, yeah.
So so I politely declined that thought process. And by the end of the conversation, the recruiter was like, actually, I'm really excited for you to come in. And I was trying to break up with you. And now I really need you to interview for this AE role. So the rest was history. I was able to join this. They had not, I didn't know anything about what this meant yet, but they had just gotten a Series B. It hadn't even been announced yet. So the day I started was the day they announced it publicly.
Good.
And they made a handful of ink lists, and it was all this big deal. And my husband texted me and just went, so how's it going? And I was like, I don't know. It seems pretty good. I'm drinking some champagne. And he was just like, it's
Yeah.
10 in the morning. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know. I guess we got a bunch of money or something.
Yeah. Mhm.
And there we went. So, there was no like purposeful intention of like, I'm going to break into tech and da 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 da. It was like, no, this is what needed to happen for my life. And the only thing I cared about was, can I go somewhere where I don't work on the weekends and that I get off on time?
Yeah.
Those are my non-negotiables. I could have ended up at a horrific place, and ended up at a wonderful company that I was at for 5 years.
Sounds pretty intentional to me, though. At least from a like, these are the boundaries that I'm willing to work in, and I'm not going to go be an SDR, right?
That's
Like
true. That's
you
true.
had
Yeah.
some boxes that you wanted to check off for this role. So is that Zero Height? Is that the company you're referring to?
No,
Okay.
this one was called SmartZip,
Okay.
and it was a predictive analytics and marketing, paired marketing, digital and print marketing company for the real estate space. So
Got it. Okay.
yeah,
So 5 years there. Um, and then you continued a path of
I
work
did.
startups, right?
Well, actually, funny enough, so when I was there, so we got our Series B, we scaled over 25 mil. I became a sales manager and then basically the director of sales by the time I was in the last year and a half there. And then we were going to get acquired. And I had been referred to HubSpot. And
Mm.
one of my favorite AEs to this day, and I'm still one of my guys that I stay in touch with, and we keep trying to see about ending up somewhere together again. um, and he had gone over there, and he is like, "Hey, I think you would really like it here. They're really big on remote, which this was before the pandemic, right?
Nice.
Parent life and like work life balance and the culture, all the things you love." And I was like, the blog company? I didn't,
Right?
right?
That's what they used to be known for. They just
Yeah.
wrote all this content that
It was
it was great
it
content.
was great content. And I
Yeah.
was like, what do you guys sell? And he was like, HubSpot. And I was like, I don't know. And I remember my marketing director at the time, in the last like 6 to 12 months of me being there would say, because of course, like any Bay Area startup that gets Series B money, uses Salesforce and Marketo.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible options for that stage company.
Super
Um,
expensive. Too
so
much. Way
that's
too much for them.
not the right. And she would always go, we should be using HubSpot. And I was always just like, I don't know what you're talking about. So then I go and start looking at it, and I was like, oh my God, they're an entire marketing automation. They're like the top marketing automation platform, and they're doing CRM, all that. So I did go to HubSpot, but I didn't even last a full year before I started getting recruited to go back to early stage. And I have very fond memories of HubSpot overall, but I actually didn't really enjoy working there while I was there.
Yeah.
And it was just good for me to see, like, no, large
Yeah.
company is not it for me.
Yeah.
So, so it didn't last. I say I had a love affair with HubSpot because it was, brief, but I've since used it and implemented it into organizations like 6 times now. So I love HubSpot to use it for the right places.
There you go.
But yeah, I went and I became a head of sales for a pre-revenue startup from there.
Beautiful. Okay. So the thing that I wanted to ask about is like you did this big scale move from 2 million to 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now look, anybody who's working at, big software is like, whoa, that's not much. Okay. You have not spent a day or a week or 5 minutes inside of a startup and know how freaking gritty and hard it is to get the first 2 mil in ARR, but let alone take it to 10. Yeah. What was the most exciting and maybe humbling lesson in that journey of taking that company from 2 to 10 million?
Yeah. I mean, that was my favorite job I've ever had to date. And I've gotten to work for really great places, and, when I was the role I had before, which lasted a year, and I knew it would maybe only last a year, was pre-revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Super, super risky. I learned everything not to do again from that job, which is really valuable. It really jumpstarts what you do next, I feel like. So whenever I talk to people that maybe are in a role that just was not what they wanted and maybe a lot of not great, or they felt like it was a failure or something, I'm like, what's so good about this? You have now learned firsthand what you don't want to do again and what to look for so that you will know so clearly the right one next, right?
Yep.
Because that's what Zero Height was for me. And I thought for a moment, because when I joined this pre-revenue startup, it was March of 2020, like 2 weeks before the world fell apart.
Oh, babe. Yeah.
Right?
That's
No
harsh.
idea that was happening. And
Right.
so it was a really difficult year, not just because of being in a pre-revenue startup, but because of what was going on in the world and in this household. So, that being said, I thought for a moment, I am not going to go into early stage next. For now, I think I'm going to hunker down. I even almost went back to HubSpot, like need to be in something more stable. And then Zero Height found me. And I was like, oh my God. Like I literally ran upstairs to my husband after I got off the first call with the executive recruiter that had found me. And I was like, this is it. I know I said no early stage, but this is it. They were pre-Series A. There was like 10 people and I'd be the first
Wow.
US leader, right? And it was like, but this is it, right? Also, they were profitable, which the P word did not exist like 4 years, whatever,
No way. That's
right?
unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah.
I was able to see so clearly, like I said, all the right green flags of how this could be a good choice versus only an uphill battle like it was prior. So joining, what made it so special were the people. You hear that a lot from other places, but that was really what it was. I was so excited about the founders and just the people and this very tangible culture that they had and the way they went about things. And the day I started, the CEO was actually talking about his own firsthand experience with anxiety that he had, like very specific experience, to introduce why they had decided to partner and purchase this company called Spill, which would give us all free therapy.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Wow.
really good therapy. And I was like, I got honestly a little emotional because I went, wow, I really found the right place, And so, just that set the stage for me to feel really safe and comfortable to do something that has lots of risk and mistakes and stuff like that. But I'd say humbling still was when we had hired a head of growth for marketing about 6 months into me being there. Because one of the things when I joined was we didn't have a marketing leader, and we weren't even doing email marketing. And I remember being like, what? Like, what? We don't email our database, like what? But I realized we were drowning in inbounds at the time, dream.
Wow.
I know. So I was like, well, it's not a problem. So I guess I shouldn't worry about that.
I've always had a mantra: if it's not a problem, we shouldn't be solving it.
Right?
Let's
It
not
wasn't a problem to
create
solve.
solutions for problems that don't exist.
Right. So, that being said, I still felt like, well, we should probably start a marketing motion strategy now. So anyway, 6 months later, we got this guy that, was wonderful and started. But after he'd been there for, I want to say 6-ish months, he was there to be there as like the head of growth and not specifically like holistic, like all marketing. Because what happens is you start to get into a place, and if that role isn't there, I think you kind of then think, I want that role. And the CEO had decided and told him that they were going to look for like a VP of marketing. And now he realized, oh, why not me? Right. And we were talking about that. And it made me realize, like, well, I hope he doesn't go hiring someone over me soon. Like, I don't want a surprise. That was my thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to have this conversation because I don't actually like it's not conflict, but like direct conversations like that. And yet I like being in executive leadership. It's strange. But I worked up the courage to say, hey, can I just ask that if you feel like you need to hire someone above me, that you don't surprise me. I want to be able to talk about it. I want you to tell me ahead of time. I want to be a part of finding that person, with you. And I also just want to know why. Why you think I'm not equipped to do it. And so he goes, okay, like, I promise I will. So he did. Some months later, he said, remember, I said I would. Well, we're going to start looking for a VP of sales to come, be here too. It probably could take us a year before we even find the right person. So I'm telling you now, and I'm not going to hire anyone that you don't want us to hire. Like, you need to be a part of this. This is very important. And I went, okay. But I was just like, but why? Because if we find that I have a gap that I'm not prepared to help keeping us go over 10 mil, I'm trying to think, we were probably at probably about 5 mil at the time or so. And I just want to know why, because I've had an amazing sales leader before where it didn't feel like they were my boss, but we were partnering together to reach company goals and stuff. And they taught me things and they lifted me up and they saw things in me that I didn't see. Like, that's what I would want. And it would be a win for everybody here.
Yeah,
So
that's leadership.
Right. That's what I would like. So it's like, that's just what I'm asking about. But his only response he could give me at the time was, well, as we get closer to needing to get over 10 mil, and on, we just need someone who's done it before, which is what CEOs and founders love saying, right?
And it's what investors love hearing.
That's what boards like telling you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
went, but why? Like, is there doubt that have created, or there's just a skill set that you are not seeing in me that I can't just keep doing what I've been doing? Not really, right? That wasn't the issue. It was just this whole, we need someone who's done it before. And that irritated me a lot. But I had to go, okay, like, let's go find someone and hopefully I get really inspired. And we did. We interviewed people. And then we never hired anybody. We worked with an executive search firm, all of it. And we never hired anyone.
Wow, a lot of time and money wasted when they could have been focused on the business.
It was humbling because, it still did remind me. I mean, not that of course I wasn't perfect. And there was and here's the thing, most CEO founders of startups, like they've never even been in people leadership before, let alone have
Correct.
They're almost always an engineer. Once in a while they've come from sales, and that's, it has its own things too. But it's very difficult for my boss to help level me up, right? Or tell me maybe gaps that he wants for me to work on when he doesn't know even sales leadership and stuff before. So, so what I was super thankful for is all I had told him when we were starting to have some of those conversations is just like, well, I don't know what I don't know, right? Being an early stage startup leader, you're usually doing things you've never done before, and you like it like that. And you're constantly doing it, more and more and more. But I don't know what I don't know. So, it'd be great to have like an executive coach or something. Bam, he got me an executive coach.
Wow.
Yeah.
Say more about that.
Well, he goes, okay. And actually I think he was one who's like, would you like to have a coach? Because he had a coach, right? So that's one thing. Another thing I loved about my founders, they were very transparent with the company. Like, we have our own founder coaches. Like, we don't know, like, we've never done this before. Yeah. And so I was like, great, I would love, because I could never personally afford a great executive coach and so I was just like, that would be amazing. So then he helped, you talk to because we were YC combo company, so really great, network to lean on. And there were some people that he had been introduced to, and he even knew there was this one guy. He was like, I don't think this is your vibe. And he told me, I was like, oh yeah, no. And then there was someone that he found. He's like, I think you'd really like this person, and we met, and I did. And he was my coach for a while, and it was wonderful because it's not like he told me things that I'd never thought of before, right? He helped keep me honest. He helped be a sounding board. He was also a great kind of advocate for me with the company. So, because sometimes, especially again, if you're not sure if what I'm saying is maybe a great idea as this, for the CEO, and he can go to another person who has done this before and be like, no, like this is okay, or this is good. That makes the CEO also feel like, great, like someone who I trust also who has done this successfully multiple times is also saying this is okay. So great, right? So it helps alleviate some of the doubt you have as a CEO founder too, of like, are we in the right direction? Because all you are is filled with doubt a lot when you're doing this stuff, right?
When you are doing stuff you've never done before, you're absolutely filled with doubt. And if you're not, then you're not human.
Yeah. Right? And that's when you start making the biggest mistakes. And I've been there before too, right? I've done so much of this stuff before. I could do this, and then you might find yourself in a place of being humbled or making a big enough mistake. So I was really fortunate to have the support to give me an exec coach that helped me really not ever have any moments of like major blunders or something. And that has stuck with me ever since, because one of the founder myths that I'll talk a lot about is I don't agree with that whole, you got to find someone who's done it before. I think it's a bunch of crap. And I think that, if your main worry, which I usually try to isolate out of the CEO who says that, is you're just looking to de-risk, then you get them an exec coach. Like, that's a great way to de-risk someone. If you find the right person that match your non-negotiables in the company, which are far more important in my opinion than just done it before.
Yeah.
then just de-risk by giving them a coach that has done something like this before, so that you have that sounding board and or the person who maybe has done this to say, let's not go that risky, or what are you forgetting about here? Whatever it might be. So that
Lindsay,
was,
that is so freaking powerful, actually.
I try to
Yeah.
share about it as much as I can, but there's a lot
Yeah.
there.
Hey, quick break for a second. If you are a sales leader who is ready for your next step up, and I'm talking about leading other sales leaders, becoming a director, a VP, even a CRO, then this is for you. I'm hosting a free workshop. You can grab your spot at amyevanscoaching.com. This is for sales leaders who are in tech and are wanting to land jobs where you can earn anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year. And again, you can grab your spot at amyevanscoaching.com. Okay, back to the show. I mean, I started my career in a startup, and we got to a point where the startup had done well, and we done Series B and C, and it was getting to be time for an exit to happen. Like, the investors had been in for a while. They don't Back then, investors didn't hang out for as long as they hang out now.
Right.
There was this pressure to have an exit. And so an acquisition was imminent. A joint venture had occurred with a big name brand company, and acquisition was kind of the next step. And what they did was they brought in this guy as a leader of sales who was just a terrible fit for the culture. Didn't really understand anything about what we were doing or how we were doing it, but what the board liked about him was that he was a seasoned sales leader.
Mhm.
And I would say, the seasoning wasn't good.
It was over seasoned, maybe.
It wasn't what the business needed.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like, the founders and all the shareholders had to give up shares to this dude who just showed up out of nowhere, didn't really contribute any value. The company was already going to grow and
Right.
achieve the revenue metrics because of all the work that the founders and the marketing, everybody else had been doing for, over 8 years to get this business in a great spot. And this guy just like showed up right before this liquidity event happened and walked away with millions of bucks. And the co-founders that had been there from the get-go, sweating it out, sleeping, at the yacht, like all the things. And they're sitting there looking at this guy like, why are we giving any of this to you? Right. So I think your advice is so powerful there. When you consider, like, what's the distinction between performance and execution, it's almost always like grit, persistence, of course, a certain set of values, integrity, honesty, all the things you look for, trust.
Yeah.
And then if you got all that in a human, then give them the coaching.
Yeah.
So they can learn how to execute the job instead, and not lose the runway, not lose the time of somebody coming in from the outside, having to completely learn the business, them, of course, wanting to do what they know, which is whatever they did before, which was whatever's been done before, which was whatever's been done before. And you're caught in this, we're trying to create something new here, and you're busting us up with this, like, old way, slow way of doing things.
It's very disruptive to bring in an executive leader as it is. That's the thing. Like, once you've kind of found your groove as a company and you bring in someone like that, it's going to be disruptive, even if it's a good fit. Right? There's going to be some growing pains. And also there's the huge fallacy that I try to kind of break, that whole, like, they've done it before, so it's less risky part. What a dangerous assumption to think that what they did before is going to happen again, because nothing ever happens the same way again, right? Different time, different people, different product, different scenario. Like, no matter what, you think, oh, they're from this industry, and like, it's not going to be the exact same. And also, if any leader out there, I actually kind of refrain a lot of times from saying stuff like, oh, I scaled companies from 2 to 13 mil or from now, like, that's not me. That was us. Was I
Yeah.
part of it? Absolutely. But like, that would be so dumb to think that I'm the reason that that happened. So when you get these people who have these resumes with doing this before, or they're, and like the fancy brands that maybe IPO'd or got acquired and all that, like, I'm not taking away credit from something wonderful
Yeah.
they've done, but it's such a fallacy, a dangerous fallacy to think that they can just replicate it here because they've done it too. So if you're going to make a disruption, it needs to be for a very good reason.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I've been in the flip case scenario though, too, where I was at another startup and we were completely transforming the business, which is, I think, when you do have to have some experienced leadership at the helm and you can't promote within. When you're doing a transform, like you are taking a left turn at Albuquerque and you're having to like take a revenue stream and replace it with another revenue stream, there's a lot of risk
yeah,
there. And getting an experienced person to show up who's like, I've done this kind of turnaround or I've done this kind of transformation before. Turnaround transformation is different than grow.
yeah,
That's different than build and grow.
yeah,
Turnaround transformation is like, come in, diagnose, figure out what's broken quickly, get things back on track quickly, get people on board
yeah.
quickly.
That
Right.
change
And
management.
yeah. And so, when I was when I worked in that company, that there was a guy, he came in, he was old Oracle. And oh man, he first came in and it was like one of those love-hate relationships with a leader. And I love him fully, like one of the best people I ever worked for. I learned so much from him, but he drove me freaking crazy because he made us do all the stuff that you have to do if you're going to be an excellent sales organization.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
If you're going to hit your forecast.
yeah, yeah,
So that brings me to pipelines, a
yeah.
topic I know you hold near and dear.
I do. It's so funny too that you just brought up how, like major transformations, is different, because ironically, when I decided to do my fractional business, that's where I've now found myself, is instead of focusing on, like hyper growth paths like before, it's been solving major, like helping with major, pivots and changes and things like that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, change management is difficult, and managing pipelines properly is always change management, because 99% of companies just they don't do it very well.
I'm aware.
Yeah, right. Because you
I'm
just
so
fire,
aware.
right?
Yeah. 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 Let's talk about that for a second, just from actually, before I go to pipeline, let's talk about ICP,
Mm,
because every I hope everybody's talking about it. They better be thinking about it, because gone are the days when you can just do what was done 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, where you just, said, hey, here's your geographic territory. Here's the list of all the companies
best.
in your territory. And, here you go.
Yeah.
Go get it.
Yeah. I was just talking about this before this too with someone. So there's two things that I tend to hyper focus on with my business alone, which is ICP and then forecast fixing. And so with ICP, what I found, and I learned this from all my time in my W-2s, right? And my leadership roles prior. What's so wonderful about early stage startup that I personally like, this is not for everybody, is that, yeah, I was responsible for scaling the revenue, but I also had to be able to be proficient in every part of the business, right? And I've also actually led customer success there and in a couple of places before too. So I've always had more of a holistic go-to-market approach about how I do things versus like very sales lane specific.
Mm-hmm.
And so something I was really harping on a lot anywhere I would go. And then in particular at Zero Height, the last full time was just like, I'd always be like, we don't really have like a written down great definition of our ICP. And it was a very beautiful product led growth company. So I was kind of like, shouldn't we really be like understanding like what our ideal customer is if we've been able to create such great organic like product led growth? It's always up in the noggin, and in discussion, but it's not something that someone sat down and intentionally not just wrote out, but like validated and constantly validating against what we're doing. And of course I'd be like, well, I'm going to take a stab at it. But then, that and 5 other million things. And so then you kind of try to find someone else in the company. What I realized is that it's everybody's job to do this, and it's nobody's job to do this, which is why when I went fractional, I'm like, cool, I am going to hyper focus on this for companies, because you can't just go take someone's full-time role and just say, do this thing. Because people think when you go to figure out what your ICP is, it's just sitting down and writing out some attributes. That's not your ICP, right? Like truly knowing your ideal customer profile is more than just location and size of company and industry they're in and the main pain point that they have, or even knowing what titles you go after. It's so much more than that. And also it evolves, right? Or it iterates. So you can't just do it one time when you're a 10-person startup and then never touch it again, which also happens a lot.
Yeah. Hey, Lindsay, give me an example. Like if it's not those attributes, what's something that helps, like that you can think of? I don't know. Give me an example. Like that really distinguishes an ICP from, hey, this is just a list of companies that.
Things. Yeah, I always have it. Like there's 2 buckets that I say you need to have to form your fully defined ICP. It's the things you can find on paper is what I call it, and then the things you can't. So you can find on paper are kind of some of the ones I just listed. If you go into your Apollos and your Zoom infos and all of that, and you check the filters, those are all the on paper things. But when you start, what I do when I do my ICP offering is I literally, depends on the size of the company, but I'll interview every person in the company and I'll just ask them, describe the best customer for this company, right? Like the most ideal, perfect customer, just describe them to me. And then on the flip side, the worst. And I get all these answers and I get different ones based off of how long they've been there, what their role is and the experiences they've had. And I do it individually so they can't influence each other.
Yeah. Right.
Especially the founder, CEO, who's always the visionary. And I'm like, get out of here. You're the main reason why people just kind of go with whatever you say. Right. And then I take all those responses. And when you start seeing, I literally use like a fig jam board so I can have the Post-its and I'll layer them. And I'll be like, 21 people said this about our customer. You're taking anecdotal responses and almost now making it like objective data, because you're just like, 21 people said that early stage startups are terrible for us. When you had maybe the CEO being like, we're going to go after early stage. No, you're not, because it's actually a terrible idea. And here's why.
Yeah.
Not good for your business. It's taking away resource. Just because you're able to sell to them doesn't mean you should be, because here's why, right? So you start taking all that. But I also take a bunch of data, right? I'm like, I want to take your closed lost opportunities. I want to take all the people who've churned. I want to know who's been with you the longest, who's upgraded and spent the most money on you, right? I take all that information, and there are things that are not on paper that you'll start to be able to learn. One example from a client was, this was a really amazing SEO agency. They did incredible strategy plus the actual content that you need to generate in order to build proper SEO.
Okay.
And one thing I realized when talking with them is that their most successful customers were within industries or categories that the team knew about. And I had never had that before, because I was very usually much from like tech and SaaS, where I'm like, it doesn't matter if I know about this. I could sell it. It doesn't matter, right? My customers can be just as successful. But when you're talking about creating long form content that is coming from a perspective and gives value and things like that, and you're creating strategy around how to do all of that, and you know about that topic, or you even care about that topic, it goes better.
Leg up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that became part of our definition of what's considered the best like, because we rank, right? You can't have high ranked ICPs all day long. It doesn't work that way. But when we want to talk about what that means, that's a not on paper thing. You can't find that out unless you have discovery with people, right?
Yeah.
But when you speak to those things that are not on paper in your like marketing messaging and stuff, those are the ways that you get people to go, you're talking to me.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to go this in depth. And my whole theory is when people end up having these major inflection points in their business, they were growing and now they're not, or that classic, sales is mad at marketing because their MQLs suck, and customer success is mad at sales because they keep selling all the wrong customers, and then no one thinks product's making anything good.
You pretty much summed it up right there. That's every software company, pretty much everywhere, right there. Mm-hmm.
It's because everyone's operating towards a very slightly different definition of the ICP.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I get it.
That's why I talk about it so much.
Well, that's where it's at. Folks are, you no longer are in unless you are selling like super broad spectrum stuff and you're huge, which is nobody unless you're, one of the giants.
Yeah.
You've got a very refined product that does a very particular thing, and to find your people who are your people who that's the secret sauce between the companies that are making it and those that don't. Yep. And I see a lot of the tools that are out there. I actually worked for I did fractional work too. We should talk what fractional work is for a second in case people don't know. And then we'll shift to more fun stuff. But this company that I worked for, they were all about finding that like attribute, Lindsay, that you talk about, those like off the spreadsheet attributes.
Yeah.
And it was really, really cool stuff that they were doing. Kind of reminds me of another solution. I think WebSets is doing sort of that.
Yeah.
But there are players that are really emerging in that space to try to get to what I would call like the fourth dimension of ICP, right? Which takes you into a place of like, now I've got, I know, these people like Coleman's mustard instead of, Dijon, and my Coleman's are my people,
Right.
So with that, we're going to switch to food because I brought us there with my mustard somehow magically.
Mustard is important. Like mustard choice is very important.
I can't think of very many other choices in the kitchen. Besides which which fat are you going to put in? Like
butter.
These are fundamentals. Straight up butter every time. I mean, can you go wrong? So if anybody follows you and after today and they hear this, I hope they do, because there's so much fun stuff. I saw your post yesterday just had me fall out of my chair. I kid you not.
Oh, was I flipping a table over?
It was the flipping the table over. I was just like, damn.
Or for those listening, it's my youngest, like it's right there. It's like
Don't worry. I'll see if I can find it. And
it's not like a full size table. I'll
try to throw in a B-roll here.
Yeah.
So what you, in addition to doing all this, like, heavy duty ass kicking, GTM, ICP, XYZ, stuff that you do, you post these killer, amazing, like, who's posting videos like this on LinkedIn? Nobody else that I know. Like, what's for dinner?
What's for dinner is always good. Yeah.
Yeah. How did your love of cooking begin? Did you grow up cooking? Yeah.
Yeah. When I was 3, my mom is a great cook. Actually, my dad was wonderful when he did it, but he wasn't then. It would take way too long to get him to do it. So we'd eat at like 10. But yeah, so when I was like, and I'm the firstborn. So my mom would have me help cook at a really young age. And I was in love with Julia Child.
Oh, that's an interesting girl crush to have. Okay.
I loved her because, like, I guess my mom probably, she was still a big deal then. And my mom would like narrate in her, you know how she had that very unique voice.
Yes,
the
voice.
High-pitched voice. So my mom would do the voice while I'd want her to do it like I was on a cooking show and I'd be cooking. So that's kind of, I think, how that started. So I've always loved cooking. I love food. I'm a major foodie. So while I do the most a lot of times, and my husband will be like, you don't need to make these crazy dinners like you do on a regular basis. Not that they don't like eating it, but then of course I get tired from all the stuff I do. But I'm like, no, but I like doing it. That's the thing. So
it's a creative outlet, babe. You gotta have some creative outlet.
Totally. Yeah. Just please make it so that people leave me alone when I do it, which is unrealistic ask when you have 3 boys. So yeah, but I know I love cooking. And what I've found though too is, in order for me to be able to keep cooking like I do and eat the food that I like eating, when you work and when you're a parent or have lots of responsibilities in your life, it's very draining to have to worry about what you're going to cook for dinner every night for the rest of your life, unless you do some planning ahead. And so I have to make sure I usually am like 3 to 4 days ahead in my brain about what I'm going to cook. And that's how I kind of grocery shop for, right?
Nice.
If I'm not, then we're going to get DoorDash. Like that's just, I mean, sometimes I can get creative, but on a normal basis, it's like, that's how I keep up with making sure I know what to buy at the grocery store and what I'm going to cook and be able to cook things that I like. And I mean, years ago when I worked at that first startup we talked about, I would just post like what I cooked for dinner on Instagram. And, and you start finding your coworkers and following them on Instagram, and people would go, "What's for dinner tonight?" And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, you're always posting great dinner. So like, what's for dinner tonight?" So that kind of became a thing. So when I decided to become active on LinkedIn, it was when I started my fractional business, because before that I was very like, I don't want to be on here. And all I did was like repost my company's posts, and not
a lot of people do that.
Yeah. I started seeing how LinkedIn had changed for a while on there, people creating personal brands and doing things. And I thought that was like interesting and cool for them, but I never wanted to personally do it. But when you start your own business, now you need to build your brand, and you're not representing a company, you're representing yourself, and you're selling yourself. So I sucked it up, got over it, and started doing things. But this is the funny thing. Like, I don't like the camera, strangely, and I make all these videos or any of that stuff. So the way I was able to get over that was to do some things that were either kind of silly or something I like talking about, which was cooking. And I always kind of in the beginning would kind of relate it to like the reason why I'm posting this on LinkedIn, like a workplace, quote unquote, is how many of us sit there in the middle of our workday and then we're like, I'm going to cook for dinner tonight. And, and so I was just like, here's 5 things I cooked in the last week so that you don't have to, you could grab one of these. Here's an idea. But also people would start adding what they were like, oh, this is great. And this is what I cooked the last week. And now you have a whole post.
Yeah.
Dinner ideas for anyone and everyone to go after. And now take that out of your brain and not worry about it. And then it became a thing. And now I have no apologies for like why I post something that's not related on LinkedIn. Because if you follow me, you're going to find lots of things that have nothing to do with work.
It's so refreshing. It's so refreshing. This conversation has been so refreshing. Lindsay, the approach that you bring, I'll figure it out. I always have. And this passion that you have of being able to take on really hard projects. An ICP project is not for the faint of heart. What you just described to me, I was just like, made my head hurt a little.
That's why I do it, right?
Ouch, that's painful. But this energy is so needed, and I know that what you're bringing to the market for startups, I know that there's so much need for what you're doing, and the creativity of your approach and your willingness to just be like, I'm not going to do it the way everybody else is doing, and I'm going to post freaking cooking videos on LinkedIn when everybody else is like kind of robotically posting the same shit over and over again. That's what makes you so you and so successful. And I want to thank you for bringing your full authentic self in this conversation today. And I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please, be a generous friend, share it with somebody that you think might enjoy it. I produce this show myself. The way that I can sustain this show is by people subscribing to it, sharing it with others. And then I have an invitation I want to extend for those who might be thinking about getting ready to get promoted to second line sales leadership, which means like you're already leading salespeople today, and you want to become a leader of leaders, and you want help in getting that pathway fully launched. I did it myself 4 times. I've helped several clients do it, and I'm hosting a free workshop this next month. And if you want to go check it out at my website, amyevanscoaching.com, you can find that there. If you want to connect with me online, find me on LinkedIn, Lynn Evans, and then Lindsay. I will include all the links to find you as well. But why don't you share how people can find you if they want to find you after today's conversation?
You can just find me on LinkedIn. It's a great place to find me. I'm very findable. And I will just asterisk how important I think it is to take up Amy's free offer, because I already shared in this episode how important coaching was for me.
Yeah. Oh man, it was like we planned it, but we did not at all.
We did not, but full circle.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Lindsay. It was such a pleasure to have you. Hey there.
Free audio post-production.
I know
by
you're a super generous
alphonic.com.
person. And a gift that you could give to someone you know, a friend, a colleague that you think would enjoy today's episode would be to send them a text, share a link to this episode with them. I do produce this show myself, and every time you share it, it helps the podcast grow and it supports the work that I do here. Also, if you happen to be a sales leader who is ready to take your next step up into a leader of leaders role, whether it's via promotion or you're ready to go get that new job at a new company, I'm talking about director roles, VP roles, even CRO roles in B2B tech, where you can earn $500,000 to $1 million or more. The workshop I'm giving is an hour-long workshop. It's totally free. You'll learn the process that I teach my clients on how to effectively position themselves, effectively network, and own their executive presence so they can land the job and get hired and promoted into these big sales leadership roles in B2B tech. If this sounds like you, come grab your spot. It's waiting for you at my website, amyevanscoaching.com, where you can unlock what's next for you.